Terraform init, reconfigure. Terraform plan, Terraform apply. How many times have you executed those commands? In my case, thousands of times. I have deployed infrastructure in many companies and different cloud providers. But how many times have you executed Pulumi login? Pulumi app? Maybe only a few times? Maybe never? Today, we are going to talk about two tools that have been currently in the market that generate a lot of controversy because they are very similar. We are going to see the difference between Pulumi and Terraform, and if there is any. We are going to see when to use any of those tools and which one is the best in every situation. Let's start. First, Terraform. We can say that Terraform is the most famous infrastructure as a code application in the market. Terraform is a declarative tool that uses a syntax called HCL, like the one that you can see on the screen, where we define the resources that we want to deploy. The idea is that Terraform will read this code, and with the information from the database called state file, where we have all the components created with Terraform, we'll create an action plan about what to do. And it is so simple. Reading this file can decide to add a resource, edit, or even delete this resource. This state file database can be local or remote, for example, in a cloud bucket or in a Terraform cloud, and will contain information about all the resources that we have defined. Okay, not all, only the ones that are defined in this folder. And what does mean? That if I go to a different folder and I execute different HCL file, I will create other resources. And those are not connected? Okay, the answer is yes and no. No, because those components are not connected at all because they are in different state file. And the answer is yes too, because if I want, I can connect those components with a Terraform object called Terraform remote state. If I were in a folder, I can only execute this code once? I cannot reuse this code? There are several answers, but let's say that yes, you can reuse this code in several ways. You can, for example, use workspace that will allow you to execute different times the same code with different environment variables. This is as simple as locating state file for Terraform in different folders in the state file. Another way to reuse the code are the modules that allow us to use our code like libraries. But always, you need to remember that Terraform is a declarative language that uses HCL as syntax, and this is not always simple to do. On the other side, Pulumi. What is Pulumi? Pulumi is a, let's say, side effect of the open source. Terraform is an open source application, and that means that the code is there, open. As you can see in this video about open source, this is a very good way to make money, but on the bad side of open source, people can copy you. And this is Pulumi, a copy of Terraform. Okay, it's not really a copy, so we are not going to say that anymore. But why have investors already spent 60 million on this project if this is a tool to do something that currently can be done with the original tool? I have no answer to that. Pulumi people have removed the complexity of HCL syntax, creating libraries that can be used in language like Python, JavaScript, Go, or .NET. So Pulumi is Terraform, and nobody can doubt that. Why not to use Terraform instead? Really, I have no idea. Maybe this is the question to make to the Pulumi investor. Oh, to the investor of this beautiful terminal that I use in this video, Warp. Why do they spend 23 millions on a terminal? So Pulumi is like Terraform SDK. But Pulumi has some issues because it's not as up-to-date as Terraform can be. And what does mean? For example, if Google is going to add a new functionality, we'll talk with Terraform and we'll explain to them what is the new functionality, how it's working, and they will include this functionality. Pulumi is almost 100 employees, while HashiCorp is 2,500 employees. Should be hard for Pulumi to be up to date only if we think about all the new functionalities that we have daily in AWS, Azure, and GCP. Pulumi allows us to make simple what is complex. When we want to use conditional based on variables, loops, injections of variables, and many other things, Pulumi is very good. But why? HCL is not a simple syntax. Well, for example, if you know Python, something complex could be done in 10 lines. Pulumi uses stacks instead of states, and this at some point could reduce the complexity, but neither solve the problem, because we can use the same stack in different folders distributing the problem. The same problem that we had with Terraform and the possibility to reuse the code. But okay, we can use stacks in Terraform too, no? What option is the best? Terraform or Pulumi? We need to consider first that we are talking about infrastructure as a code tool. Both are doing the same, deploying resources using the code that we provide. But Terraform simply uses a file with an HTML syntax to create an object, and Pulumi is a library of a language. So here we have to think if we have a developer team to deploy infrastructure or a DevOps team to deploy the infrastructure. Most of the people that deploy infrastructure are not developers, so I think that here Terraform is the winner. If we have a complex environment, but complex in a dynamic way, in an environment with an infrastructure that dynamically is growing and shrinking, that is executing a big number of loops and conditional, in this case, maybe HCL is not your solution because it's going to generate a code difficult to understand. So here Pulumi is the winner. But what happens if my team has no idea about languages like Python or JavaScript? Should I need to hire a developer and an infra guy? I think that no. If we have a multi-cloud environment, Pulumi and Terraform are working with the main three, Azure, GCP, and AWS. So there is no winner here. But if you are in any of the previous cloud providers and you need support in your infrastructure, or you need a specific utility, a different level of support, an SLA, and a big team working with you, for sure that Terraform is the winner. Something to consider is what could happen in 2 years' time. Pulumi can disappear. This is a risk capital investment and could be the case that maybe there is no more money. On the other side, HashiCorp can disappear too. Why not? Last quarter, they generated 117 million in revenue, but still with a negative EPS of -17. But there is a vast difference. There are 1,600 contributors in the Terraform main repo and almost 10 times less in the Pulumi repo. There are more contributors in Terraform SDK, 221, than in Pulumi, 181. So if something happened and those two companies close the door, there are at least 10 more options that people will continue Terraform project instead of Pulumi project. So Terraform or Pulumi, what is the best? Maybe a simple shell script with an API call, who knows. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Remember that in NKDev we are here to help companies with audits, workshops, and many other themes. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and see you next time.